Good evening. Hi. Tonight I take you on location with me and I show you how to create dramatic portraits under difficult conditions. I'm Lee Love and this is Photo Mentor TV, where we do this every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, of course. And I answer your questions, help you become more confident and successful in your photography. Again, I'm a commercial photographer, director, and editorial photographer, and of course, photo mentor. Been teaching for about 10 or 12 years now, and I am excited that you guys are here tonight. And the main reason is because I get to talk about my favorite subject, which is lighting. So I'm going to take you on a little journey tonight where I did a couple of videos outside. We went outside and did some portraits. And the interesting thing about the portraits that I'm going to show you is that the conditions were not very good. So you're going to get the chance to see what it was like working under overcast conditions and how to use both on camera and off camera flash to improve your photography. Now, look, I know flash is scary to a lot of people, and there's a lot of quote unquote natural light photographers out there. But I think you're going to find that hopefully after tonight, you're going to have a little more understanding about how to use flash, both on and off camera, and also maybe not be quite as afraid of it, because I can guarantee you that if you will master to control light, your photography will change forever. It really, really will make a huge difference. You'll become more confident, and you can walk into any situation and make a usable photograph. So anyway, let me show you a little bit of what we're going to talk about tonight. Let's see here. I think this is what we want right here. Okay, yes. So we're going to take you outside, like I said, and I'm going to, the equipment I was using was a Nikon D850, which doesn't matter, could be any DSLR or mirrorless camera, of course. I was using an Nikon SB800, which, by the way, is a very old flash. It was not I think the flash was developed back in 2003, I think maybe it was. And I have my friend James, who's going to be working with us here. So let's see here. I'll give you a little bit of the setup. So again, we're going to be talking about an on-camera flash Speedlight. As I said before, it was using, I'm using, and also I'm going to show you some off-camera Speedlight. And then I don't think tonight we're going to cover the TTL high-speed sync. We're not going to have time to do that. But I also did, this is part of a 4-module course that I was working on, where we were covering on-camera flash, off-camera flash, and then I used a Pro Photo studio light, which has TTL and, of course, high-speed sync. And then in the 4th module, what I did was use some special effects using color temperature changes and CTO, which stands for color temperature orange gel, to correct that. But we're not going to cover those last 2 items tonight. We're just going to go over on-camera and off-camera flash with the SB800. As I said before, the SB800 was entered, 2003. So it's about 19 years old. And so it's not new. And I purposely selected this because I didn't want to be using something that was modern or had a lot of features. I wanted it to be very, very basic and very manual, to give you to show you could see that it doesn't take a lot of equipment to be able to do this. So it's a very basic speed light, as I said before, and I'll show you that in a minute. And again, we're going to cover both on camera and off camera. So let's see here. So I tell you, let's just jump right in and we'll get started with that. And then when we come back, I'm going to go into some more details about some other things about how to use flash and how to control your flash, and some things I think that'll fill in some of the gaps for you, hopefully. Today we're going to be starting off by showing you how to use just your regular speed light and how to do fill flash with that. And the reason for doing that, of course, is it makes your images pop, number one. Really the colors show up, and number two, it'll add a little bit of catch light to the person's eye, which puts a little bit of sparkle in their eye and makes them look more alive. So the first thing we're going to we got my lovely assistant and model here, James, and James is going to be helping us out today. So the first, I'm shooting with a DA50, but it doesn't really matter, and of course an on-camera flash, which is an Nikon SB800, which is really an older flash. There's nothing fancy about it at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test shot without the flash, just to see. I'll turn the flash off, just to see what the camera thinks the exposure is going to be. So I'll go to my mode button, and I will go to shutter priority. I'm going to select 2/50th of a second. Now the reason I'm doing that is because this is the highest sync speed that this flash or this camera will work with without a TTL or without a high-speed sync. So each camera is going to be a little bit different. Some of them you can do 1/60th, some of them you can do 250. There might be a few you can shoot at 320th of a second. But this is going to be the fastest without getting a black bar across the image. So we're going to start there. This is going to be the first picture here, okay? And we look at the EXIF data that the camera says, okay, 250. That was thought that at f8 at ISO 200 was what it would be a pretty good exposure. But the problem is, if you look at this closely, you'll see that the sky might be right, but James is underexposed. So what we want to do then to correct that is we're going to go and we're going to add our flash now. So we'll turn on the flash and we'll just use TTL for that. Okay, now look. You can see here, but this image right here is actually pretty darn good. So James is exposed properly. Plus, we have our sky. Now, unfortunately, today is really, really overcast. There's no way to get much detail in the sky that we would normally get. But what I would normally do is underexpose that sky just a little bit, and then turn up the flash to be able to bring James up to the proper exposure. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like to use on-camera flash. So again, a lot of people are afraid of flash, but and they're like, why would you use flash outdoors? Well, I actually like everything I shoot, indoor, outdoor, you name it. And the reason, as you can see, hopefully from that little video clip, is that it really makes a big difference, especially in a situation like it was that day, where it was really overcast. There was no detail in the clouds. It was really kind of dreary. And so by adding some flash, it really made a big difference and made that portrait much more dramatic. Now, I could have done a lot more with that, and I'll show you in the next video kind of some other things that we have done. But anyway, so using flash outdoors is really, really something I encourage you to look into. It's not, I think most people think of flash as just when there's not enough light. You know, I got to get a flash because I'm shooting a wedding and it's dark, the church, whatever. And that's not the case. You can use flash anytime. And a lot of times I'll use it what's called a 50-50 lighting ratio. I should have, I'll see if I can find one of those photos for you, where I just put just a little bit of flash, even if it's bright sunlight or daylight, just to be able to fill in a little bit of the shadows and to kind of make that the light a more even looking. So anyway, so that's the other thing, something important to remember. So don't be afraid of flash. Now let me go into a couple of things I want to tell you about flash. First of all, and let's see here, I think we want this image right here, and then we're going to go back. Okay, yeah. So the first thing is, let me show you this right here. So most people don't realize the thing about flash photography is it works differently than when you're doing regular ambient light, you know, regular natural light photography. And here's why. The issue is that shutter speed does not have any effect on the flash photography. It only has an effect on the ambient light. So what do I mean by that? Here's a couple analogies I use. If you were to if I were to say, we'll pick on Sue Ann here. If I said, Sue Ann, what is the shutter speed to set for lightning? Well, it's a trick question because there isn't one. Either lightning is too fast. It goes on and off so quickly. There's no shutter speed that would grab it, okay, that would open and close fast enough. So the way you'd photograph lightning is you would close down your lens so it's a little bit darker, and then you put your camera on bulb or some kind of mode where you just hold the lens open. The lightning goes off and then you close it. It's a little bit of a game, by the way. You kind of have to do a lot of experimenting, although there are some tools that will kind of help you trigger, but still, for the most part, it's a little bit of a game. So another analogy is if you're in a completely dark room, pitch dark room, and you had an object or a person in the room that you're photographing, it wouldn't matter if you had the camera set at 30th of a second or 2,000th of a second. When the flash goes off, the duration of the flash, in other words, the amount of time the flash is on and off, is what's going to give you the exposure. Well, not give you the exposure, it's going to give you the sync speed. So you would set your camera, again, f8, ISO 200, the flash goes off, it's going to be exposed if that's the right exposure for the flash. It doesn't matter what the shutter speed is. It will not affect the flash power. Now, it will affect the ambient light. So let me give you an example here. Let me show you. So here's a sample of a photo taken. You can't tell, but there's a light behind there, and a constant light, right? Okay. And let me bring this up a little bit full screen, make it a little easier for you to see. Okay. And it's shot at f8 at ISO 100. Okay. So, but it's shot at 2,000th of a second. Let's assume for a second that there's sync speed and all that kind of stuff, TTL and high speed sync, and that's not the issue. Okay, so there's the first thing. That works great. Now, the only thing I'm going to change in this photo is I'm only going to change the shutter speed. So now we're going to go from 2,000th of a second to 1,000th of a second. That's it. Still f8, still ISO 100. Now, if you notice a little bit here, the background got a little bit lighter. It's because it's one stop of light. Okay, just barely a little bit of light, okay? Now, I'm going to open it up one more stop, and I'm going to go to a shutter speed of 500th of a second. And you'll notice that the background got brighter. And that's because the lighting in the room, the ambient lighting in the room, was now more a part of the photo. The shutter speed was the same. I'm sorry, the ISO was the same, and the aperture was the same. The only thing that changed was the shutter speed. We'll go back here. This is 1,000th of a second, 500th of a second. So now we'll go to the next one, which is 2/50th of a second. Again, one more stop of light. Nothing's changed. The important part to note here, look at the woman's face. I'll go from here to the one that was 2,000. The exposure on the face is exactly the same. Now, the shadows change because there's less ambient light, right? Less light in the room that's being exposing, that the camera's picking up on. But as far as the highlights, if you had a light meter and you measured this, the light coming out of the flash would be exactly the same. Nothing would change. Okay, so we'll go back here. 2/50th of a second. Again, the lighting on the person's face is exactly the same. Here's one that's at 1/25th of a second. Again, if you notice, the face, the exposure, the flash hasn't changed one bit. The exposure is exactly the same. What has changed, though, is the ambient light in the room or on the background has now become more evident, because now I'm slowing that shutter speed down and I'm allowing more of that ambient light to come in. And then the last example is a 60th of a second. Once again, no difference at all on the person. You'll see a little more light on her right side of the face, camera left, but that's because that light is coming from the room. That's fill flash, or not fill flash, that's fill coming from the other light that's bouncing off of the background. But again, the main thing to note here is if you look at her shirt, her skin, the exposure is exactly the same, whether it is 2,000th of a second or whether it is 60th of a second. So my point is that flash, when using flash photography on something like this, the shutter speed does not affect the flash power. Only the aperture or the ISO, or of course you can turn the power of the flash up and down. So why is that important? How do you use that? Okay, I use that a lot when I do a lot of magazine work. And so let's say I'm going into a conference room or some room where I'm going to be photographing a person, and I want that background to show up. And there's maybe some lights on, lights in the room. The first thing I will do then is I will go to and I will set up the camera, and I will let the camera pick the exposure. Turn off the flash, maybe go to aperture priority or shutter priority, because I know I'm going to be shooting at a certain sync speed. But let's just say it's aperture priority. Okay, I'm going to set it to f8. I'll let the camera pick what the shutter speed is. And then I can determine by looking at that whether there's enough, that's picking up enough ambient light, or I want more of that ambient light. Okay, if I want more ambient light, I then could go to manual, for example, dial in the exact same settings, which I'm going to do here in a minute on this next video, and then lower or raise the shutter speed. So again, let's say I go back to f8, my ISO is the same, then I set my shutter speed based on how much of that background light I want. So here's another opposite example. Let's say I go into a conference room, I'm doing corporate headshots. This has happened to me many times. You'll go in and you're set up, and they'll say, oh, by the way, we put you in here because there's lots of light overhead and we can't turn those lights on or off. Well, that's okay. If I raise the shutter speed up to 250 or higher, that room becomes pitch black, because the ambient light is being killed basically, or gotten rid of by using a high shutter speed. Then I turn on my flash and turn that up to bring the proper exposure on the person's face. So sometimes I want to kill the ambient light. I don't want it. Sometimes I want to include it. And that's all done by controlling the shutter speed. I hope that makes sense. Look, I know it's confusing. It was confusing to me when I started many, many years ago. I was like, well, wait a minute, I don't understand this. In fact, I came out of the film world where you got to remember there was actually an X on the camera that was 60th of a second. That was the sync speed for the flash. That was the only thing you had to use. You couldn't go anything. There was no such thing as TTL or high speed sync. So I came from that world. Like, wait a minute, what do you mean that you use that to control the background? All right. So anyway, so that's the deal on that. So like I said, I know it doesn't make sense. I know it's confusing. But that's kind of the way it works. And so again, just one last time, let me remind you, ambient light is only controlled by the shutter speed, and the flash is controlled by the shutter, or excuse me, by the aperture and the ISO. And if you don't believe me, try it. Just set it up a camera, put it in, set it on manual, get up the, so nothing changes. Put your flash on the camera, or do a pop-up flash if you want. Put an object in there, get this setting set right, and then just start changing the shutter speed. And what you're going to find out, the exposure on the person is going to be exactly, or the object, it's going to be exactly the same. The only thing that's going to change, you're going to have more ambient light or less ambient light. Okay, so let's go here. Let's let's go to our next video, and then we'll come back, and I'll got some other things I want to educate you guys on. All right, so we've taken our speed light off the camera. We put it off camera on a light stand with an adapter, and we're triggering it with just a manual Pocket Wizard. And the Pocket Wizard is a radio system that allows you to use remotely to trigger remote flashes. This model doesn't have, it's very manual driven. There's no TTL, no high-speed sync, which I purposely selected so to show you how you could do this with having minimal equipment. So I'm back on my camera settings again, and right now the camera is set up for 250 of a second, again, because that's the fastest that this camera will sync with a manual flash. And we're shooting at about f8 or f7.1, and we're at ISO 400, and we're using shutter priority. So we're going to do another test shot here. James, you know, I should probably focus, make sure he's in focus, although kid's always in focus. Yeah. All right, so now you can see what the shot looks like. It's pretty bright, actually. There's a lot going on here, so I would probably want to bring the exposure of this down. So to do that, again, because we can't adjust our shutter speed because that's the fastest we can shoot at, and because we're shooting on shutter priority, which is going to select our aperture, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lower the ISO. So that 400 would be, at 200 that'd be one stop. So I'll do about a stop and a half here. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so if you look here, I've lowered the ISO, and we're still getting somewhat of the same picture, and that's because the camera is compensating for the fact that I'm changing the ISO. So what we're going to do now, which I don't normally recommend, but in this particular case this is exactly what we want to do. We want to go to manual mode, okay, and we're going to go to, we're going to put in this, now again, we're on shutter priority. We're going to put in the exact same exposure as the camera said. All right, and we're going to try it again. Okay, that looks pretty much the same way again. So now, but we want to make it a little darker. We want to bring that background down. So we're going to go to aperture of 7.1. That looks pretty good, actually. Sky's not too blown out. James looks pretty good. I would probably, in this particular case, want to bring him up a little more. So just let's get a little more of a dramatic look. I tell you what, let's just go down. Let's go to F9. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring our flash over, and we're going to raise it. We're shooting on 1/8 of a manual at 1/8 power. So I'm going to bring it up to half power. It's going to give us a little more pop out of the flash. Let's try it again, no pun intended. There you go. So now you can see it's a little more dramatic, okay? Which is good for James because he's a pretty dramatic guy. But let's take this flash and just move it around a little bit. So I brought the flash around a little more to camera center so it's not quite so much shadow on his right side of his face, although I think it looks pretty good. And there we go. So now you can see what it looks like this way. Okay, there's what you bring the flash around. I also brought the power up a little bit, and I think that looks like a pretty good portrait. Okay, so hopefully that helped a little bit, because now you can see what it was like when I adjusted the shutter speed only. And you saw that the picture really changed dramatically, but the flash never changed. Now, I did go in and raise the power of the flash on that last shot, and that's because I wanted it a little bit darker. I wanted the background a little bit darker and the flash, so I went from 7.1 aperture to f9, and therefore I needed to be able to raise the power to compensate for that, to keep the exposure about the same. But As you can see, by changing the shutter speed, that really is what made the big difference. Okay. All right. So now, one thing we're gonna deviate here a little bit. I'm gonna show you guys something that I think you're gonna like. I meant to do this last week when we were doing the photo reviews, and I didn't get a chance. But actually, this works out better because we're talking about lighting, and this is what I wanted to show you guys about. So, this is a photo that was done by Crystal Rivera. Now, here's the cool thing about this photo. Crystal has only been shooting, I think, since December of 2021. And I think she's using a Canon T7i. And she's just started to break into doing artificial, lighting. Now, she's using constant lighting. I think she's using a set of like the, curly cube bulbs, I think, the constant light. But it doesn't matter. Light is light. But here's the thing I love about what she did this photo. I'm the one that I named it Backstage because I thought it was really a great name for it. This is her son, and she used one light. And I wanted to point out a couple things about her photos and what she was doing here, and why this photo really works. The first thing is why it works is the light is off to the side at an angle. And here's when you light something straight on, like a ring light or just bring the light closer to the camera, it tends to flatten out the image a little bit. Okay, so it smooths it out. There's not as much texture there. Now, I will often do this if I'm photographing a woman. I want to, don't want to hide. Don't want to show wrinkles and things like that. I want it to be as flattering as possible. So I'll tend to bring the light a little closer to camera center, or use another reflector or something to make that light a little more even. But in this particular case, Crystal was going for something a little more dramatic. So she moved that light off to the edge, and when you do that, it really brings out that texture. So if you're trying to light a subject, whether it be for product photography or something else, and you want that product to have texture, then you want to be able to light it from the side. Okay, I'm going into a lot of detail. I'm not a food photographer, but if you notice, I do tend to study lighting because I'm almost obsessed with it, but as you guys know. Look at any food photography, and what you'll notice most of the time is it's lit from behind. The light will almost always come from the rear, and then they will take a little bit of something to bounce some light into the foreground or into the front of it to give it some fill and really so you can see what's going on. Because that when you light it from the rear or the side, it gives that food a little bit of texture and makes it more appealing, especially if it's something like a hamburger or something, right? You want that juiciness to be on there. That's all done with lighting, and the lighting comes from the side. So anyway, so same thing here. Crystal did a great job with this because she lit the background at an angle, and it really made that kind of add that texture and the mood to the photo. The second thing she did is by that light, it's perfectly situated so that it's hitting his face and just brushing a little bit of his shoulder there to give some definition, to separate him from the background. It's just enough. It's not too much where it's really you're exposing too much. There's a quote that says, if you want something to look more interesting, put less light on it. And I think that's what she's done here. Whether she did it intentionally or not, I don't know. But the point is, it really, really works really well. If she'd have moved that light 6 inches one way or the other, it really would have changed the look of this photo, in my opinion. And then the third thing is the light, just enough light is falling on the guitar and on the subject there, so you don't have to guess what he's doing. You can tell he's got a guitar in his hand. If you didn't have that there, again, your eye would be kind of wandering around the frame, and you'd be going, well, what's he showing there? What's going on? And you don't want that. You want to be able to have enough definition to tell what's going on in the subject or in the image, and so that you're not just wandering around the frame looking for hints on that. So I've seen a lot of people, what they will do is they will just underexpose a picture. I mean, it looks gray, it's kind of, you know, dingy looking, and they think that's moody looking. That's not moody looking, that's underexposed, okay? Mood comes from the direction of the light, the intensity of the light, and how the light's modified. What what it's using, a soft surface or a large surface or a small surface, and so that's how you create mood. And it's not by underexposing the picture and thinking that is moody, in my opinion. Okay, so let's see here. I think that's that. What else did I want to show you guys? I forgot to tell you. I forgot to show you this. So on the photo that we did before with James, the second photo, I wanted to tell you guys that what I had done on that one is I had used, I think I mentioned it in the video, but it was again same camera and the same flash, but I also used a Pocket Wizard to trigger it. Now, Pocket Wizard has been around a long time. It's a radio system, but the reason I picked the one that I did, the Pocket Wizard 2, is because it's an older unit and it's manual. There is no high-speed sync. There's no TTL. It just, you know, that's it. It just, that's all it does is it just goes bang, right? You push the shutter and it triggers the flash. That's all there is to it. It's nothing fancy at all. And so I purposely selected that because I didn't want to use something that had a lot of capability. I wanted you guys to see you can do this with a very, very minimal amount of work and a minimal amount of equipment. So, okay, let's see here. What do we got? Thank you, Allie. You're right. I agree. Allie says that, where's my thing not updating here? Tank's taking over my system here. Let's see, Tank. I don't know why it's not working there. Anyway, okay. Huh. Weird. Oh, well. So Allie says, great picture, Crystal, and it is. I'm really, she's funny. She thought I was kidding her. I think she thought I was pulling her leg because I was bragging on her photo. But when you have somebody like that who's only been shooting since December, that's pretty impressive. And she's picked up on it really quickly. And I just wanted to encourage her to do that. And I think her picture is fantastic. So, let's see here. What else? Who else? Yes. So Tank says, ISO and aperture and power of the flash. That's exactly right. That controls the exposure of the flash. The only thing it controls the background or the ambient light is the shutter speed. Now, at some point, what happens is you saw in this photo here I showed that Chris was asking about. Chris asked about what direction the light was coming from. So if you look at this here, you can see that the light is really over here on her right-hand side. And you can tell that by looking. So if I go here and show you this picture, you can see there's no light there. But as I start raising or lowering the shutter speed, you can start to see the light fill in just a little bit, like on her ear. And then over there on that side, on her side of her shoulder. And then on that side. So the light on this one came from, oh, I see, Tank, thanks. So that the light came from the left-hand side of the photo. So let's see here. Oh, I see why that is. All right, let's try this again here. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I wanted to... See if this works. Hey, got that working. Okay. What do you know? Okay, so anyway, just make sure I gotta have enough buttons to push here. Okay. Any other questions on lighting that we can answer tonight before I let you guys go? I wanted to remind you about a couple of things here. I wanted to mention again that Jessica was our first photo mentor artist for January, and then Allie, where's Allie's photo? I know I have one here for you, Allie. Hang on. And then yes, and then Allie was the winner for February. So congratulations to both of them. Really, really proud of them. They did an amazing job. And again, just so you know, the way this works is that these are people that I've selected that I think epitomize what photography is all about. It's not about necessarily about a photo. It's not. It could be about anything. I think, you know, someone that's improved very rapidly, or somebody that's been very creative. It could just be anything that inspires me and that what they're doing. So that's the reason for that, and that's something that we do every month on the first Tuesday of the month. And on the first Tuesday of the month, if you're not familiar with that, we do photo reviews. So you can submit it. They're not together, of course. There's just because you submit work has nothing to do with the photo artist of the month, photo mentor artist of the month. But if you are interested in having your work reviewed, please feel free to submit it at any time. And we'll look at it on the first Tuesday of the month. It doesn't matter what the work is. It doesn't matter what camera you use. It doesn't matter how long you've been shooting. All of the reviews are anonymous, so nobody's going to be embarrassed, of course. And it doesn't matter whether I like the photo or not. It's not about whether I like it. It's about whether the photo works or not. So if you're interested in submitting your photos to be reviewed, I would love to see them. I really enjoy seeing the work you guys are doing. You can go to review.photomentor.tv. That's obviously http://review.photomentor.tv. That'll take you to the form to submit your work. Let's see. Another thing I want to mention. Okay. So first of all, I wanted to thank everyone who submitted their application or their name for the free coaching. I don't know if I have the slide for that anymore right now. I think that's because it's over. Anyway, the point is that I really appreciate everyone submitting their name and email address and everything for that. I'm working very hard to get that set up, and I'm pretty excited about it. We've got a really, really great response on that, which is terrific because, you know, like I said, I really want to be able to help you guys out and get you started for 2022. So there's going to be 4 winners that are going to be selected for the one-on-one coaching. But I've decided to add a bonus to that. Now, I don't want to announce that now because I got to get it squared away. But even if you entered the sweepstakes to win the coaching and you didn't win the coaching, there's still going to be something for you. I'm still going to do something to help you out. And I'll be announcing that hopefully next week on the next week's show because I got to get it all squared away. A lot of legal things involved in that. But I'm going to be starting notifying you guys hopefully Thursday on who the winners are. So again, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate everyone entering to that. And I hope if you really, really needed it and you entered, that you win. Like I said, I'd love to be able to do this to 100 people, but I just can't. So anyway. All right, let's see here. Anything else? You're welcome, Allie. Thank you very much. It was great. Okay. All right. Well, listen. Hey, that's it for this week. And listen, I want to thank you guys for joining me. Hope this was helpful. We're going to be doing more of this kind of stuff. I know the other thing that I'm getting a lot of people asking about, there's 3 things that are the top of the list. Lighting is one, posing is one, and the other one is editing. So I'm working on something for you guys to do on editing, and also some other cool things I've got in the works. So I got 3 other things I've got going on. Just don't have enough hours in the day to get it all done, but I'm working as fast as I can. So thank you very much. I want to tell you, I really, really appreciate you guys hanging out with me on Tuesday nights. It means the world to me. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, I'd appreciate if you do that. That would be a terrific idea, and that way you will get notified when the next show is or when the topic. So, again, thank you very much, everyone. And hey, listen, have a great week.